I never thought Sunday brunch would end with my daughter looking me in the eye and saying, I can't stand you anymore. We're cutting ties. It started over something small. It always did. She barely looked up from her menu when I asked if Lucy still needed a ride to her piano lesson. She's fine, Mom. Mason's got it, she said, flat, irritated even. I smiled thinly, tried to keep the tone light. Just asking. You seemed stressed last week. Melanie set the menu down and I said, I've got it. You don't have to comment on every little thing. Across the table, Mason stared down at his water. One of our friends changed the subject. Weather, I think, but it didn't matter. The tension had already landed. I could feel it humming beneath the table. I'm not trying to interfere, I said gently. It's just habit. You mean control, she muttered. I blinked. Excuse me? She leaned back in her chair. You always do this. Offer help I didn't ask for. Then act wounded when I don't fall over with gratitude. The words didn't come out cruel, just tired, like she'd been thinking them for a long time. I opened my mouth, closed it again, tried not to look at anyone else at the table. I felt heat rising behind my eyes, but I wouldn't cry. Not here. And then, almost as an afterthought, she added, Honestly, I can't stand being around you anymore. We're just done. It's better if we cut ties. That was it. No tears, no raised voices, just clean public severance, like a performance she'd finally rehearsed well enough to deliver. The room froze. Her husband, Mason, dropped his fork mid-bite. Our neighbors, the Wilkins, tried to pretend they hadn't heard, eyes darting between us like they'd stumbled into a car crash. I didn't respond, couldn't. My breath caught mid-inhale. I kept waiting for the punchline, for someone to laugh and say, okay, awkward joke, but no one moved. I looked at her. My daughter, the woman I once taught to hold a spoon, whose college tuition I scraped together with night shifts and leftover casseroles. She didn't flinch. She didn't frown. She just watched me with that cool detachment like I was a stranger she'd bumped into at a bad party. It was Mason who finally spoke. Mel, maybe this isn't the right time. But she waved him off. No, this is the right time. I'm done pretending. And that was the word that caught me. Pretending. I'd given her so much. Not just money, but myself, my trust, my softness. I remembered when she called me crying after she failed her first anatomy exam. And I stayed on the phone for 3 hours reminding her she was capable, that she wasn't alone. But maybe she never wanted comfort. Maybe she only wanted confirmation that I was still willing to give, no matter how little I got in return. Melanie turned her back and walked out of the restaurant before I could speak. Mason gave me an awkward half-nod and followed. And then there was silence. Everyone else suddenly remembered they had somewhere to be. The Wilkins said something about needing to check the parking meter. Even though we were in a valet lot, the hostess came by and asked if I wanted dessert. I told her I was done. I didn't leave right away. I sat there alone at a half-cleared table, a single birthday candle still flickering in the dim light. I watched it until the wax melted into the cake and the flame guttered out. Because I needed a sign, any sign that the love I gave hadn't been a mistake. I left that restaurant feeling like I'd just been peeled open, like a nerve exposed to air. The drive home was a blur. I don't even remember turning the key in the ignition. Just the rain starting to splatter against the windshield as I sat there, stunned in the parking lot for what felt like hours. My hands trembled the whole way home. Not from anger, at least not yet, but from disbelief. I kept asking myself if I'd misheard her. Maybe I'd misunderstood the tone, the context, something. But the words were clear, as sharp as glass. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a choice. And it wasn't even the words that hurt the most. It was how easily she said them, how casual she made it seem to sever something that had taken me decades to hold together. We'd always had friction. She was independent, stubborn, brilliant, and I was always there, ready with encouragement, or, if I'm honest, with a checkbook. I told myself it was love, not leverage, that I was helping, that it made her life easier. Especially after med school, when she called me late one night, sobbing over loans and how she didn't know if she could do this anymore. I wired the money the next morning, paid the last of her debt, and never asked her to pay it back. She'd hugged me when I visited that week. She'd told me I saved her life. Now, suddenly, I was poison, unbearable, something she needed to cut from her world. I got home and dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. My apartment was so quiet it felt like a punishment, the kind of silence you don't get used to. You just survive. I sat at the dining table, my birthday card from her still unopened in my purse. I didn't even remember taking it with me. The envelope was glittery, purple, and heavy with fake sweetness. Inside it said, "To the most generous, selfless mom, thank you for everything. Love you always." I read it once, then again, then I laughed. Sharp and bitter. The kind of sound you make when something inside you breaks and you're too tired to hide it. Was it a lie or just insurance? Something she thought she had to write to keep the money flowing? I looked at the candle I'd brought home from brunch, still tucked in a napkin. I don't know why I took it. Maybe because no one else would. I held it in my hand, still a little soft with melted wax at the base, and whispered the question out loud. What did I do to deserve that? The truth burned my throat. I gave too much and asked for too little, and she had learned that love without boundaries was a bottomless bank account. I didn't cry. Not yet. Crying would have meant I believed it was truly over. But somewhere deep down, something had cracked. Not my love for her, my tolerance. The next morning, I woke up hoping it had all been a misunderstanding, some heat-of-the-moment thing she'd call to apologize for. But there was no message, no missed call, no silent olive branch waiting in my inbox. By morning, the ache had settled somewhere behind my ribs. Not sharp, not screaming, just there. Like an old bruise, I kept pressing to see if it still hurt. I didn't sleep much, just stared at the ceiling and thought about every time Melanie had said thank you in that brittle little voice of hers, like she was choking on the words, like it killed her to need me. At 8:12 a.m., I opened my laptop out of habit more than anything, just checking bank balances like I always did. The routine felt safe, familiar. At least the numbers made sense. Except this time they didn't. The first thing I noticed was the date. Monday the 3rd, same day of the month as always. That's when the automatic transfers usually hit. Groceries, the kids' swim lessons, her mortgage top-up. Except now I wasn't just staring at numbers. Now I was staring at evidence. $3,245. That's what went out yesterday. Quietly, neatly, just like the month before. And the month before that, mortgage assistance, $1,600. Grocery stipend, $400. Private daycare, $720. Mason's car insurance, $180. Miscellaneous transfer labeled family care, $345. I clicked through the tabs, my stomach turning. None of this was new. I'd set most of it up myself 2 years ago when she and Mason were drowning under medical school loans and Lucy's therapy bills. It wasn't just support, it was love. That's what I told myself. But this time it felt different. I felt different because now I knew what she really thought of me, of my help, of the way I kept showing up even when I wasn't wanted. She hadn't canceled a single transfer, not one. She'd looked me in the eye, told me she couldn't stand me anymore, and still let the money roll in like clockwork. I sat back in my chair. My mouth tasted like rust. She didn't hate me. She just thought she didn't need me anymore. And now that she had the house, the job, the family, the nice backyard with the swing set I paid for, now I was disposable, like a debt paid in full. God, was that all I'd ever been to her? A bridge, something useful until she got where she was going. The silence in my living room grew heavier. I looked over at the framed drawing Lucy made when she was 5. I read, "Heart Grandma," written in glitter glue, still crooked in its dollar store frame. I used to think that drawing meant I'd done something right. Now I wasn't so sure. I clicked back to the account screen and just stared at it. $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. And she had the nerve to say I was toxic. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't ready for anger. I was still bleeding out from the truth of it. She had cut me out emotionally, but kept the financial umbilical cord perfectly intact. My hands hovered over the keyboard, itching. Not to cancel anything. Not yet. Just to know, to see, to finally admit what was happening. Because now it wasn't just about Sunday's words. Now it was about the quiet betrayal she didn't even think I'd notice. I didn't leave the house all day. Didn't shower. Didn't eat. Just kept turning over rocks I hadn't dared to touch before. I opened my messages looking for signs. And once I started looking, I couldn't stop. No happy birthday this year. Not even a text. Mother's Day. A group message with a stock photo of tulips. Christmas. A forwarded e-card that took 5 clicks to open. But the real gift was always in January. The family budget spreadsheet Melanie emailed every year like clockwork. A neat little list of her expenses and what she expected me to help with. I pulled it up. There it was. Updated 3 months ago without even asking. Labeled 2025 support plan. Thanks, Mom. Sparkling heart. Support plan. Like I was a retirement fund she could borrow from on demand. I scrolled through it with new eyes. A line item for home maintenance, $2,400. A dental fund for the kids, $600. Professional wardrobe refresh. Return to office transition, $850. Return to office. Funny, she didn't mention that in our last real conversation. She was too busy telling me she didn't have the bandwidth to plan a visit, but she had the bandwidth to plan what I would be paying for. Every cell in that spreadsheet stung. Each one whispered, she doesn't think of you as a mother anymore. Just a wallet with Wi-Fi. I pulled up our text thread. Next, I scrolled all the way back through 2 years of messages. Not a single one said, "How are you, Mom?" Or "Want to come to Lucy's play?" Or even just "Miss you." It was always, "Do you have the insurance login? Can you Venmo for the field trip? Did you get the grocery alert? Our card declined." And my favorite, "If it's not too much, could you top off the mortgage this month?" Not once did I say no. And now, I couldn't find a single yes from her that wasn't attached to an ask. I stared at the last photo we took together, Christmas Eve 2 years ago. The one where I stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, smiling like a fool. She didn't lean into me, just posed like I was a family obligation. She was checking off her to-do list. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I'd done enough of that because suddenly everything made sense. The missed calls, the stiff smiles, the silence around my birthday, the emotional distance stretched thinner each year, like elastic being pulled just shy of snapping. It wasn't gradual, it was a setup. She didn't just fall out of love with me. She planned the exit. She phased me out like a business client. And I kept showing up with casseroles and birthday checks, too proud or too blind to admit she'd already moved on. I was done wondering if she loved me. Now I was wondering how long she'd been pretending. When the sun came up, I got dressed slowly.
No makeup, no earrings.
I didn't need armor today. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. By 9 a.m., I was sitting across from Ethan, my financial advisor. "Is everything okay?" he asked, brow furrowed behind those wire-rimmed glasses I teased him about for years. I smiled, not out of politeness, but out of clarity. It's time to make a few changes. We started with the auto payments. Every one of them. Melanie's mortgage top-up, her grocery fund, the daycare withdrawals, Mason's car insurance, canceled. Then I added a 2-step authorization to every account and removed Melanie's access from the shared banking app. I never should have given it to her, but back then I thought she cared. I thought I was helping her juggle things. Ethan hesitated when I brought up the will. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "You may want to wait a bit. Let things settle." "They've already settled," I said with more steel than I expected. She made her choice. Now I'm making mine. I had him draft a new version. Clean, sharp, with one very clear clause. No access, no inheritance, no legal claim to the vacation home or trust unless she reestablished contact with me voluntarily and remained in good standing for 2 full years. His eyebrows raised slightly. "You want to incentivize emotional honesty?" I shrugged. "I want to stop rewarding manipulation." By noon, I was done. It felt like exhaling for the first time in months. On the way home, I stopped at the nursery and bought myself a pot of late summer hydrangeas. I hadn't touched my own garden in weeks. It used to be something Melanie and I did together when she was a teenager before she got too busy, too important. Now I planted alone, and it felt like a reclamation. Back home, I brewed a cup of chamomile, walked out to the porch, and sent one final message. Just one sentence. I understand. Thank you for being honest with me. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before pressing send. No guilt, no sarcasm, no desperation, just acknowledgement. She wanted distance. She wanted to be free of me, so I gave her what she asked for. And then I opened my planner and wrote one word on the next day's page. Lawyer. Because it wasn't just about money. It was about space. It was about the way they were building their lives on my back and still telling me I was the problem. She thought she'd won. She thought cutting me off emotionally while still siphoning my resources made her clever. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't frozen. I wasn't falling apart. I was preparing. 2 days later, I picked up the phone and dialed Mason. It wasn't anger that pushed me to call him. It was curiosity. Cold, quiet curiosity. Hey, Olivia, he answered, cheerful and clueless. Everything okay? That voice of his was too upbeat for a man whose wife had just cut her mother out of the picture. He didn't know. She hadn't told him. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Oh, I just wanted to ask what time Lucy's piano recital is next week, I said sweetly. There was a pause. The recital? He repeated, like I'd asked about something from a forgotten calendar. Yes, I said, leaning into the lie. Melanie mentioned it last month, and I just wanted to make sure I had the right day. He hesitated. I could hear him shifting the phone between hands. I don't think there's a recital coming up. Not that I know of, but I can ask Mel. She probably just forgot to update me. I let that hang in the air for a beat too long. Well, no worries, I said, calm as ever. By the way, has she mentioned that you're no longer getting the mortgage top-up? Dead silence. Then wait, what? There it was. The pause, the confusion, the growing awareness that something had shifted under his feet and Melanie hadn't told him. I took a small sip of tea. The kind of sip you take when you're letting someone drown in their own silence. I had to make some adjustments, I said. She made her position very clear at brunch, and I thought it would be best to honor her boundaries. Mason didn't speak for a long time. When he did, his voice was smaller. She didn't tell me, she said there was a misunderstanding. I didn't know it was this serious. Of course, she didn't tell him because she never meant it. She never intended to actually cut ties. She just wanted to make her point, wanted to slap me down in front of our friends, assert her power, show everyone she wasn't under her mother's thumb anymore. She thought I'd crawl back. Instead, I turned off the faucet. Well, I said, standing now, walking slowly through the hallway of my quiet house. I'm sure the two of you will figure it out. You've always been resourceful. Olivia, wait, he blurted.
Can we talk?
Can we call you later tonight? I didn't answer that. I just smiled, paused, and said, give Lucy a hug for me. Then I hung up. And for the first time in weeks, I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, not a bitter one, just amused because Melanie wasn't ready for this. By Thursday, the cracks started showing, but not for Melanie. No, she was still playing the part. Radio silence. Too proud to walk back her little brunch performance. Instead, it was Mason who broke first. It started with a text. Hey Olivia, I think there's a mistake with the mortgage. Did something change on your end? I didn't respond. 3 hours later, I checked our joint card. 2. It's not working. Any chance you froze it? We were at the grocery store, and it declined. Kind of awkward grimace. Awkward. The audacity almost made me laugh again. But I didn't reply, because what was there to say? They weren't confused. They were just unprepared. Melanie had gone off script. And now the house of cards she'd built was starting to sway in the wind. Then came the voicemail from the daycare center. Hi, this is Angie from Little Acorns. Melanie said you usually take care of the tuition, but your payment method was declined this month.
No worries.
We understand these things happen. Just let us know how you'd like to handle it. There it was out in the open. They hadn't even bothered to set up their own billing after cutting me off. That's how certain they were I'd keep footing the bill, no matter how cruel they behaved. I played the voicemail twice, just to let the absurdity settle in. They told me I wasn't family anymore, but still expected me to pay the daycare, the groceries, and the mortgage. It was like watching a magician fumble mid-trick. You finally see the wires, the sleight of hand, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. That night, I set the phone down and opened a new spreadsheet. I titled it Things I Owe Them Nothing. Then I poured a glass of wine and let the silence stretch. The next morning, Mason called, not texted, called. I let it go to voicemail. Then again, 10 minutes later, finally a text. Can we please talk? This is getting serious. Of course, it was because without my quiet deposits, their life didn't function. I was the invisible engine in the background. Steady, unthanked, but always there. And now they were stranded. It was nearly dusk when my phone buzzed. I expected another voicemail from Mason, or maybe one of those desperate, performative texts Melanie sends when she's trying to look calm but is really writing code. Just checking in. No pressure. Hope you're well. But it wasn't her. It was Lucy. Mommy's been crying a lot. Did you make her sad? Just like that, the breath caught in my throat. Because there it was, straight from a child who hadn't learned to lie yet. Not filtered through manipulation. Not masked behind pride. Just raw 7-year-old truth. I stared at her message, so long the screen dimmed. Melanie was crying. Melanie. The same woman who stood at brunch like a prosecutor on trial day. The one who sliced through my dignity in front of strangers like it was nothing. The one who hadn't even had the courage to tell her husband I'd stop supporting them. She was unraveling. Not financially. That would come later. No, this was worse. This was emotional dependency revealing itself. The thing she swore she didn't have. Because no matter how much she wanted to pretend she'd outgrown me, detached from me, freed herself from me, her tears told the truth. She wasn't free. She was flailing. I set my mug down slowly, my hands no longer shaking. I felt still, not vindicated, not smug, just clear. Melanie didn't cut me out because she didn't care. She cut me out because she couldn't stand needing me anymore. And now that the money was gone, the silence was growing. The rope she'd spent years twisting around me had been burned. She didn't know who to be. She had mistaken control for love. And now, without either, she was exposed. I typed back slowly.
I'm sorry.
Mommy's upset, Lucy. Grown-ups sometimes have hard talks, but I love you always, forever. I wanted to say more. To say that I didn't make her cry. That Melanie made this mess herself. That I've spent her whole life trying to keep her from drowning in her own anger. That I loved her so much I let her blame me. But none of that belonged to Lucy. So, I sent the message and tucked the phone under my palm, breathing deep into the silence that filled my sunroom. And then I looked around. I looked at my house, the curtains I picked, the books I chose, the life I'd built after Richard passed. This was mine. Not a waiting room for their needs. Not a holding cell for when the grandkids were sick or the mortgage was late.
Mine.
Melanie's tears weren't my responsibility. Not anymore. Because this was the truth. She wanted the benefits of a mother without the burden of one. And now that the faucet was off, the rug pulled, the power shifted, she didn't know how to stand on her own. Well, let her learn. It started with something simple. I just wanted to print a few old photos, something to fill the new frames I bought. A little gallery wall for the hallway, maybe. I was finally making this house mine again. Not a museum of their childhoods, not a shrine to a daughter who couldn't look me in the eye, just mine. So I logged into the shared Dropbox folder, the one we used for family photos and holiday planning back when we were still pretending this thing between us could pass for closeness. I scrolled past folders labeled Lucy Dance Recital 2023, Family Cabin Trip, and Thanksgiving Menu. So many memories with my name left out of them. Then I saw it. Client Summary Melanie R. My cursor hovered over it. It wasn't a photo. It wasn't even in the right folder. Just a stray PDF with a date from last spring. I clicked it before I had time to question why. And when it opened, God help me, I stopped breathing. It was a therapy intake form. Name, age, emergency contact, and then primary concerns. I scanned the words once, then again. I read slower the second time, thinking I had misunderstood, but I hadn't. I feel trapped in a relationship where generosity is used as a form of control. My mother gives, so she can stay central in my life. Every gift comes with invisible strings. Her presence makes me feel suffocated, like I can't make choices without guilt. Her love is performative. It's about being needed. I want space. I want boundaries. But she frames that as rejection. And then the line that gutted me. My mother only gives so she can remind me I'm dependent. Every dollar is a chain she disguises as a gift. My hands trembled on the keyboard. I leaned back slowly, staring at the screen like it had slapped me. That line, I whispered it aloud, needing to hear it outside my own mind. Every dollar is a chain. Is that what she believed? Is that how she saw me? I thought about every casserole I dropped off after Lucy was born, the hours I spent pacing hospital halls during her residency, the birthday checks, the down payment, the bills, the babysitting, the groceries, all of it. Every ounce of it. I thought it was love, but she saw it as control. I shut the laptop and sat in silence, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. The grief came then, not the kind that sobs and wails. I'd already done that. This was something deeper, something slower. This was the morning of a story I had told myself for too long. I didn't sleep that night, but I wasn't restless. I was ready. I sat in the dark with a legal pad, writing out everything that still had her name on it. Things I'd given freely. Things she assumed were hers by right. Things that had strings I never meant to attach. But now I would. Because love without respect, that's not love. That's servitude. At 9:01 a.m., I was sitting across from Julian Weiss, my attorney for the last 8 years. He'd helped me update my estate plan after Richard passed. Thoughtful, discreet, the kind of man who didn't flinch when clients walked in, carrying quiet rage instead of grief. He looked up from his laptop when I entered. "Olivia," he said carefully, "I didn't expect to see you so soon." "I'm making changes," I said. My voice didn't shake. "We're revoking all shared access. We're removing Melanie from the vacation property. I want full documentation of everything she's ever touched." He blinked. Then he nodded slow and certain. "Understood." I handed him the legal pad. He read it in silence. When he got to the trust portion, where her name was listed as a future co-beneficiary, he raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "I'm not erasing her. I'm just closing the tap. She can earn her way back into the will, but she doesn't get to bleed me dry and then sit on a beach chair I paid for." He almost smiled. Not cruel, with respect. I'd never said anything like that in his office before. Not in all the years he'd known me.
Fair, he said.
"We'll draft an amendment that allows for reinstatement under clear conditions. I'll also recommend a forensic audit if there's been misuse." "There has been misuse," I replied. I slid a folder across his desk, printouts from my accounts, recurring charges I never approved, one-time transfers I hadn't noticed until now. Charges labeled home improvements and family medical needs, but all of it processed by Melanie under my shared login. "Is it criminal?" I asked. Julian was quiet. "Then it's gray, but it can be made very black and white if needed."
Good.
Let her try to explain herself in writing. Let her learn that inheritance is not a birthright. It's a relationship, one she lit a match to in front of witnesses. By the end of the hour, we'd filed 3 revocations, updated my power of attorney, and locked every trust behind notarized doors. Her access was now frozen. She didn't know it yet, but she'd feel it soon. And not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed proof that I wasn't invisible, that I still had the power to draw a line, that I wasn't going to sit quietly while she rewrote history and drained me dry. This wasn't punishment. This was accountability. Before I left, I turned to Julian one last time. "There's one more thing. I want a letter, a formal letter. No threats, just facts sent to Melanie and Mason, explaining that her access to the vacation house is terminated, that no further expenses will be covered, and that all future requests must go through legal counsel. Julian gave a slow nod. And how would you like it delivered? Registered mail, I said. I want her to sign for it. I want her to feel it in her hand. I plan the dinner like a performance. No drama, no speeches, just placement. A few key details left visible, a few silences left unfilled. Let them come to their own conclusions. I invited Mason and the kids, only them. I told him I was making lasagna, Lucy's favorite, and I'd picked up some of those garlic knots she liked to dip in ranch dressing. He accepted instantly. I didn't ask if Melanie would come. I knew the answer. She wouldn't show her face. Not yet. Not with everything unraveling. And that was fine. This dinner wasn't for her. It was for him. They arrived just after 6 o'clock. Mason looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping. He offered to carry the dessert inside, a store-bought pie, overcompensating for something. Lucy ran ahead to set the table with mismatched napkins, and Jamie followed, still in his Spider-Man pajamas despite the hour. I watched them settle in like nothing was wrong, like they didn't feel the tremor beneath the floorboards.
We made small talk.
I asked Lucy about school and Mason how work was. He answered politely, carefully. Every now and then, his eyes flicked to the hallway where the framed family photos used to hang. I'd taken them down, not in anger, just for closure. Over dinner, I was gracious, quiet, not tense, not cold, aware. I let the conversation float, but I also let certain things stay in view. A manila envelope on the console table labeled Beneficiary Update, notarized. A thick packet of paperwork peeking from my purse, the corner marked Trust Asset Modification. And the best one, the key fob to the beach house, now attached to a new brass tag with only my name engraved on it. I saw Mason notice it. He didn't say a word, but his jaw tightened. He wasn't stupid. And then, like clockwork, he brought her up. She's been struggling, he said softly over the clink of silverware. She thought you were just upset. That things would settle. I took a sip of my wine. Things have settled, he cleared his throat. She didn't expect, well, everything. No one expects consequences, I said. Especially not when they've never had any.
He looked down, said nothing.
Lucy asked for seconds. I gave her extra garlic knots. We sat like a family who hadn't been cracked open and bled. Then Mason spotted it. Just beside the sink, the revoked credit card cut clean down the middle. He blinked at it, eyes narrowing like it might explain something he hadn't been able to name. I didn't offer a story. I didn't confirm anything. Let him tell her what he saw. Let him report back that the locks were changed, the beach house key had a new name, and the photos were gone from the walls. Let her guess what else had been scrubbed. After they left, Lucy hugged me hard. I miss you, she whispered. I miss you, too, I said into her hair. But sometimes grown-ups have to step away when things aren't kind. She nodded like she understood. I think she did. Mason stood in the doorway longer than he needed to. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He wanted to apologize or explain or plead. But none of that was my responsibility anymore. So I just said, drive safe, and shut the door. It was just past dessert when I heard the car screech into the driveway. Too fast, too late. Mason and the kids had just pulled away. The kitchen still smelled like garlic and marinara. The leftover pie sat cooling on the counter. I knew she'd come. Not because she missed me, but because she finally realized something was slipping away and she couldn't control it anymore. I stayed seated. Didn't flinch at the sound of the car door slamming. Didn't move when her heels pounded up the front steps. I just folded the cloth napkins one by one, setting them beside the empty plates. Then bam, the door flew open. She didn't knock. Of course she didn't. Melanie stood there, chest heaving, face blotchy and wet. Her mascara had run into the corners of her mouth. She looked younger like that, smaller but not softer. You're ruining my life, she hissed, voice cracking under the weight of whatever story she had told herself before this moment. I looked up and for the first time in years I saw her, not the version I'd been trying to love back into kindness. She was trembling. "I'm not ruining anything," I said, voice calm, steady. "I stopped financing the life where you thought I didn't matter," she blinked. And that silence, that 1 second of stunned disbelief, that was the moment she realized I was no longer scared of her disappointment. She stepped forward, her hand trembling at her side like she wasn't sure whether to clench it or reach for something. "You cut everything," she said. "You blindsided us." "You said you couldn't stand me," I replied. "I believed you." She flinched like I'd slapped her. And that's when I knew this wasn't about money.
Not really.
It was about losing the control she thought came baked into my love. Because what she really expected was for me to cave, like I always had. Bake her forgiveness into a lemon cake. Apologize for making her feel guilty. Pay another bill. Disappear a little more to make her more comfortable. But I hadn't. I had let the space grow. I had let her hear her own silence. And now she was standing in my doorway, mascara streaked and furious, because for the first time in her life, she had nothing left to threaten me with. "No one cuts their own daughter out of a trust," she said, her voice rising. "Daughters who call their mothers chains disguised as gifts get cut out," I said flatly. Her face drained of color. She knew what I'd read.
Good.
Let her feel it. Let her own it. She didn't cry. She turned sharp instead. "You don't get to rewrite what kind of mother you were." "No," I said, standing now, calm as ever. "But I do get to rewrite what kind of woman I'm going to be from now on." She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out because there was nothing left to say. So, she left, slamming the door behind her. The kind of slam that was supposed to shatter something, but it didn't. Not this time, because I was already whole. She came back the next morning. No knocking this time, just a sharp rap of her knuckles against the glass door. Not frantic like the night before. Controlled now, performed. I opened the door slowly. Melanie stood there with a clipboard in her hand and a pen tucked behind her ear like she was walking into a client meeting, not her mother's house. "I want to talk calmly," she said, her voice too even, too tight. I nodded and stepped aside. She walked in like a stranger, scanned the room, noting what was gone. Photos, keys, the stack of gift cards I used to keep in the bowl by the door just in case they needed something. I motioned to the dining table. On it was everything. A decade of printouts, wire transfers, bank statements, voicemails transcribed, checks with her name in the memo line, screenshots of grocery deliveries, ballet recital paid in full, dental copays, last-minute emergencies, all of it labeled, dated, accounted for. Her entire adult life laid out like an exhibit. "I thought you should see it," I said. "The life you say I used to control you. Every receipt, every dollar, every time I said yes." She stiffened. Didn't sit. "I never asked you to do all this," she snapped. "But you expected me to," I replied. "And then you punished me for doing it." "I never punished you. You humiliated me." I cut in, voice like stone. "You stood up at brunch and cut me loose like I was nothing. And you thought I'd still keep paying." She looked down at the papers, then at me, and for the first time, I saw it. The flicker of shame. It cracked through the surface like light leaking through wood rot. "You think this proves you're a good mother?" she said softly. "That money makes you right?" I stepped forward, picked up a photo from the pile, a Christmas morning one. Lucy sitting on my lap, opening a gift I'd wrapped in gold ribbon. "No," I said. "This proves I was never trying to control you. I gave because I loved, and you twisted that into something ugly so you could walk away without guilt." I held her gaze. "I didn't raise you to be cruel, but I won't let you punish me for being kind." Her mouth opened and closed. "You said every dollar was a chain," I continued, "so I cut the chain. And now you're furious because you liked the weight. You liked what it got you. You just didn't want to say thank you for it." She sat finally quiet now. "I don't want anything from you," she said, but the words didn't have teeth. I leaned across the table. "Good," I said, "because there's nothing left to take." I gathered the papers slowly, slipping them back into the folder, and stood. She didn't move. She just stared at the table where the truth had been laid bare and for once had stayed there. No rephrasing, no guilt, no manipulation, just the math of it. The years of giving totaled in black and white, and the cost of being unloved in return. I walked her to the door.
She didn't fight it this time.
Before she left, she turned to me. Her eyes were bloodshot, but no tears came. "You make it really hard to love you," she whispered. I tilted my head. "And you've made it impossible to trust you." Then I shut the door, not with anger, but with closure. By Monday morning, the ripple had become a wave. The daycare called again. Same woman, nicer tone.
Hi, Olivia.
"I know you're no longer handling tuition, but Melanie hasn't updated her payment info, and we're 2 weeks behind. We'd hate to disrupt Lucy's routine." Her voice trailed off, waiting. I didn't feel the silence. "Okay," she said finally. "We'll reach out to Melanie again." Next came the credit card company. Except this time they were calling me. Melanie had listed me as a backup contact. I'd forgotten. I answered out of habit. "This is regarding the cosign line of credit ending in 0445. The man said, "Professional and indifferent. It appears the account is now over its limit and payments are overdue. Are you still a guarantor?" "No," I said firmly. "That authorization has been legally revoked. Please contact the primary account holder." And I hung up. One click, one breath. It felt like shedding a skin I hadn't realized I was wearing. By Thursday, I got the first message. Not from her, but from Mason. "Please, can we talk? Then we're losing the house. The kids are scared. Melanie is not okay. I'm sorry." The desperation oozed from every word. Still, I didn't respond. They had built a castle with my bricks and then handed me a wrecking ball, expecting I wouldn't use it. I didn't want them to suffer, but I wasn't going to save them anymore. That was the difference now. They needed to feel the absence of my support, the way I had felt the absence of their love. You don't get to gut someone, then ask them to help patch the roof while the blood is still drying. That weekend, I drove past their house on the way to the farmer's market. A for sale sign sat crooked in the front yard. Mason was in the driveway with a measuring tape, probably getting the garage dimensions for the listing. He didn't see me. Melanie wasn't outside, but Lucy was.
She waved.
I waved back, and my chest cracked just a little, but I didn't stop. Not because I didn't love her, because I did. Because if I kept throwing them life jackets, they'd never learn how to swim. And I wasn't going to drown for them again. It took a month, 30 days of silence. And then one afternoon, my phone lit up with a text so plain I read it twice just to feel the hollowness of it.
"Can we meet?"
Just you and me. Somewhere neutral. No apology, no warmth. But I agreed, because sometimes closure doesn't come when you need it most. It comes when you've stopped needing it at all. We met at a diner halfway between our homes, a small aging place with vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like regret. I chose the corner booth, sat facing the window. She arrived 5 minutes late, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Even though the sun had already dipped below the horizon, her walk was slower, shoulders hunched like she wasn't sure if she was coming to confess or collapse. She didn't order, just sat. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, voice paper thin. "I did," I replied calmly. "But I'm not here to fix anything." That caught her off guard.
I saw it.
She looked down at her hands, picking at a chipped nail. "I didn't mean it," she said finally. "What I said that day." The words hung there like smoke. I sipped my coffee and nodded once slowly. "But you said it," I replied. "And I believed you." Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't blink them away this time. I was angry and tired, and I felt like I was losing control of my own life. "I understand that," I said. "But you didn't just push me away. You planned it. You weaponized it. You made sure I felt humiliated." "I didn't think you'd actually stop everything," she said, voice cracking. "I thought you'd be hurt, and then you'd bounce back." Of course she did. Because I always had. I stopped. I said, my tone soft but solid, because I finally realized that helping you was hurting me.
She was crying now.
Not the controlled single-tear performance I had seen before. Real messy hiccuping sobs. "I've ruined everything," she choked out. "We're in debt. The house is going to sell under value. Mason's mad all the time. And the kids.
God. Mom.
The kids asked why we don't see you anymore. My throat tightened, but I stayed still. I'm not here to punish you, I said quietly. But I'm also not here to rescue you. She wiped her nose with a crumpled napkin. I need you. No, I corrected. You need yourself. She flinched. But I can't. Yes, you can, and you will, because this is what boundaries look like. This is what love looks like when it finally turns inward. For a long time she said nothing. Then, like a child, "What now?" I leaned back, folded my hands. "I don't know. That's up to you." We didn't hug. We didn't hold hands across the table. We just sat in the quiet understanding that something had broken. And maybe, just maybe, something else had started to grow in its place. Not trust, not yet, but truth. And that was enough.